You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series, and my name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. The interview subject coming up for you is a forgotten man of new wave of British heavy metal. Very influential he is, though. His name is Graham Purkis, and he's the drummer in Thunderstick. I guess he also goes by the pseudonym Thunderstick as well. But the reason for the conversation is to promote the excellent, the epic 2017 album, one of my favourite albums of the year, Something Wicked, This Way Comes. So let's have a listen to what he has to say. Let's go. You have a new album for 2017 titled Something Wicked, This Way Comes. And mate, I've got to tell you, I was pleasantly surprised. I did not expect... Well, mate, I didn't expect a new album from your good self, and I especially didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I do, with all due respect. And I think I think a lot of people will feel the same way that I do if they give the songs a chance. So let me ask you this. What inspired you to create music again under the hallowed Thunderstick banner?
More than anything else was the death last year of my one-time singer stroke partner, Jodie Valentine. She was with me in the 80s for 5 years. We were together. We, as well as releasing material back in those days, there was a lot of material that we had written and we had played live, but it had never seen the light of day. It had never been released. And when I found out about her death, it's you know what it's like when you find out something about somebody such as
Sure.
that. It got me thinking a lot, and it really did shock me. It wasn't so much that she had died; it was more the fact that she had suffered from early Alzheimer's disease and had been in a care-assisted home for 5 years.
Shit.
And yeah, really, indeed. And there was a guy that contacted me. Because she was American, she'd gone back to the States. She gave up singing when she went back out there, and she took up piano. She used to teach classical piano. She had a degree in that. Anyway, this guy contacted me, told me that he was himself a musician, and that as a voluntary service, he would go to various places and visit people such as Jodie. And once he found out about her past, he actually got an album, because I released a lot of the early backlog material in 2011. He then took that bought that CD, went in to see her, and the saddest thing was that when he played her the CD, sitting with her, she by all means didn't even recognize her own voice. And that was, that really shocked me. And so because of that, I thought all the material that we had played live and never had been recorded properly, it was about time that I did that, really, as a kind of homage to her. And that's exactly what I did.
Good on you, mate. Very good reasons for doing that. So you were she was part of the band for 5 years. Now, for those who don't know, mate, what albums did you release with her as the lead vocalist or singer?
Well, we did, first of all, we did an EP that was called Feel Like Rock and Roll. That was a self-financed EP with 4 tracks on it. It was about 20 minutes, just over 20 minutes of music. Then we did an album called Beauty and the Beasts. That was the first full Thunderstick album. And then we later went on to record another album, Don't Touch I'll Scream, which, as I say, never saw the light of day. And so that's where 7 tracks on this new album come from those sessions. So all I've done is rearrange them and tried to I wanted to try and get, with this new album, I wanted to try and keep one foot in the past and one very much in the now. And so I treated the guitars in a kind of a new wave of British heavy metal type of way. I wanted that kind of sound to it, but at the same time, I wanted it to sound comparatively contemporary and very much in the now. And judging by people's reactions, they seem to have actually agreed with me that I managed to pull that off, which I'm really pleased about.
Couldn't agree more, mate. This is... I'm going to make a point a bit later on in our interview, which I think you've just summarised very nicely there, but it sounds like as though that she might have even been, talking about your previous vocalist, she might have even been with you guys in spirit when you were recording these particular songs.
Well, that's very strange for you to say that, because the one thing that I've never really written any any kind of ballads before. And on the last track on the album is called I Close My Eyes, and it was a direct homage to Jodie, as I say, in memory of her. And it was incredible, the speed of which the lyrics came and the vocal melody, etc. It was really strange. The guy in the studio, because we had a working title for it, putting down the backing track, and the guy said to me, what's this called? Is it called anything yet? And I said, yeah, I Closed My Eyes. And it just literally just hit me like that. And it was very strange the way it came about. And as I say, it's quite a departure for me, because I've never done any kind of rock ballads or whatever. And so with this one, I'm really quite proud of it. And we put it on YouTube, and first couple of weeks, I think we had something like 8,000 people viewing it, which was insane. But anyway, yes, that's very much so. She was in spirit with us, yes.
All right, very nice, mate. And look, what I'm about to say now goes on for a little bit, so bear with me, but I have thought about this one, so here goes. It is a question wrapped in a statement. I was certainly aware of who you are as an artist, and I was also aware as a bass player that you are a famed drummer. In many ways, you are also the face of a new wave of British heavy metal as declared by Sounds magazine all those years ago. So I found out about you and the release via an article on Blabbermouth of all bloody places, and promptly listened to the cut accompanying the article, which is the excellent Don't Sleep with the Enemy idea. Now, I'm not one of those blokes that listens to a lot of old school rock and metal, I've got to say, but I do appreciate new sounds and innovation over legacy artists such as Led Zeppelin and Iron Maiden, but this is probably because I've lived with heavy metal for 30 years of my 39 years alive, and I'm eager for new sounds these days. But mate, I've got to tell you, your music has struck a chord, and it is the exception. It really grabbed me, and I think it will grab a lot of other people too. It's such a refreshing change, and the new album, if you can believe it, has found a home amongst my collection of Emure, The Charm the Fury, Adagio, and Rings of Saturn, which are metalcore and deathcore records, and a plethora of other modern hard rock and heavy metal sounds. So here's my question. How do you plan to promote the album, and how can you reach a young and impressionable audience? Because I'll certainly be doing my part to help promote the album, but it is a challenge in 2017 to recognise what medium is best for promoting new music and art. Hope you caught all of that.
Wow, Andrew, that was amazing, absolutely amazing, and thank you so much for that. I mean, yeah, unbelievable. Really kind words. Thank you.
Pleasure,
right,
mate.
Get to answer your question. As much as I possibly can promote it, I'm going to when the hard copy comes out, hopefully at the end of this month, the CD. That's going to be available all over the place to actually buy. We're going to put it on both of my Facebooks, both my own Facebook, Barry Graham Purkis, plus the Thunderstick Facebook. We also have a web store that we will set up. It's called myfreewebstore.com. Mm-hmm. And as well as that, we will be on Bandcamp. As promoting it, I intend to do as much as I possibly can to promote it. I mean, there's a few people around me that kind of make up the kind of immediate family around the Thunderstick thing, and they will help as well. But yes, I'm in a lucky situation that I can dedicate a lot of time to it, and it is a case of just sitting down in front of the computer, because it's a different age now.
Bloody oath, completely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the way to promote something now is to really sort of one-to-one with your audience, which is basically the reason that I've done part of it on Pledge Music being crowdfunding. Yes. So I have a real good mate, a guy called Bernie Tormey, who...
Aussie's guitarist, yeah. Oh,
that's right.
One-time Aussie guitarist, yeah.
Yeah, and Gillan as well, obviously.
Yep.
Yes, I've been friends with Bernie many years, and to see him do 3 albums on the Pledge Music, it sort of I thought to myself, well, I can try that, because after such a long layoff, I had no idea as to how many I had as a fan base. It was a little bit kind of it was just sort of try to get some idea of who would like it and who would like to buy it, and it was just a case of trying to get in there and seeing if I did have actual people that still wanted to hear Thunderstick music, and it has really kind of been quite a humbling experience for me to do that, because there are lots of people that have just suddenly come out of nowhere and said, you know what, I had your album back in the day, and one thing and another, and that's really, really good.
So you've recruited a new band, of course, and I understand they recorded the new album alongside of you. So it wasn't you that played all of the instruments, you actually recruited a band around you. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And the singer in particular has really taken me by surprise, and I understand her name is Lucy V. She sounds very impressive, mate. How did you go about recruiting new members, and how did you find people?
Okay, well, as soon as I realised that I was going to do it, yet again, it was going to be a problem, because I thought, well, I've got an immediate close circle of friends. So the first thing I asked was my old guitarist back in the 80s, who had never ever recorded with me. It was crazy, because we were together a good couple of years, and he had been doing material that subsequently went on this album, but he had never been recorded doing it. So I phoned him up and said, this is a guy called Dave Kilford, and I said, Dave, what do you think? And he went, oh my God, yeah, it would be great to actually lay the ghost to rest, as it were. Yeah. So he was first on. The other people came about because the studio that I used was an old school friend of mine, and he sat down with me and we did the logistics to it. And he said, well, what are you hoping to do it for? How much, and etc. The hard, cold facts. And I said, yeah, but I haven't got a band around me as yet. And he said, well, I know a guitarist down here. I can put him in contact. And that was a guy called Martin Shellard. And both guitarists, I was very lucky in that they both really complement each other in their styles. So it's really nice to hear them playing at the same time simultaneously, because they both fit into that slot, as it were. And then I started looking for female vocals. I didn't want to find somebody that was a carbon copy of what Jodie was. I needed somebody with a different voice, different attitude, etc. And that's where Lucy V came up. We auditioned her. I had looked at a fair few, and we boiled it down to two young ladies, and Lucy was the one that I took on. And as for the bass player, very strange. I went to a Steve Harris gig with his side, his
solo project.
Yeah, that's it.
British Line.
British Line, yeah. Yep. And he was playing local to me, and I went to see him, and it was crazy because it was the first time I've seen him in years,
Yep.
And he was just preparing to go on stage, and the agent who got me in, she said, quick, come here, and opened the door, and he went, bloody hell. Yeah. It had been a long time. So Anyway, afterwards we were talking, and he was doing his meet and greet with all the different people that were queuing up to see him. And the next day I was on Facebook, a guy dropped a note and said, we were in the queue behind you at the Steve Harris gig. And I went, oh, right. And he put in a friend request. I went onto his page and saw that he was holding a bass. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, because originally I was going to use John McCoy. Now, John McCoy is quite a well-known bass player in this country. He was the Gillan bassist when Bernie was the guitarist.
Right,
and
gotcha.
I've known John for many years. He was on the first Samson album as well that we did. Anyway, I was going to use him, but one thing and another, it didn't turn out. Anyway, I looked on this Facebook, and I started talking to this guy, because the picture of him holding a bass, he submitted some stuff that he'd done, and we got together, and that was it. We managed to gel. It's different for me because I usually don't use a bass player that is a finger bass player. All the bass players I've used and worked with in the past have all been plectrum players.
Right, okay.
Yep. Very, very percussive with that. But with Rex, he just sort of had such a nice style. I found it very, very similar to that of Gene Simmons, really. And So, we worked well together. So, that was it. We had the band, so we went in and did it.
Well, that was the thing that really... there's a lot of things that impressed me about the album, but the word cohesive comes to mind when I start thinking about the way the musicians interpret your wonderful music. And look, I live in Brisbane, and I've had all sorts of god-awful trouble in the past trying to bloody get average musicians together for standard gigs in pubs and clubs around southeast Queensland, mate, yet alone trying to find people that can interpret original music, mate. So it's either really easy or really hard, and it sounded like, though, with all due respect, mate, again, it was quite easy for you to find people. But did you find people were attracted to the reputation that you were able to offer, and, instead of the riches and the world tours and all of that sort of stuff, were people just thinking, shit, this is my opportunity to be a part of something significant?
I think a bit of both, really. I chose unknowns. They are known within their own circles, obviously, and they're playing. But especially with Lucy and Rex, they hadn't really sort of done anything significant. And I'm not saying that to belittle them at all. They just
no, you're saying that. Yeah,
it hadn't happened, and so Rex and I got together and we started going through the material, and it was quite obvious that he was going to be able to translate it the way that I wanted it. Lucy was very much an X factor until I had an audition tape of her on we shot a little DVD of her, and when she was auditioning, so I knew the kind of voice that she had, that husky kind of smoky blues voice. Not so much like Jodie, because Jodie was a really quite a clear, crystal clear type of voice, almost like musical theatre, that sort of thing, of which she had done in the States. Whereas Lucy had come from a different background. She had that kind of feel about it, that smoky feel about it. So it was an X factor because I didn't know how she was going to perform, but she did, and it was great because I thought, hopefully I'm able to give these guys just and it doesn't, I hope it doesn't sound conceited or big-headed or anything, but I was taking them up to a new level for them.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm sure
they hadn't had that recognition. They hadn't suddenly have people saying, wow, do you play with so and so and all that kind of thing. So I was I was pleased to do it. It really, and now we've got to try and do it live and go out and play live. So.
Yes. Okay, so let's ask a question about that. Are you planning on doing a tour far and wide, or just some local shows, or how are you planning to promote the album in terms of touring and performing?
Yet again, big X factor. I mean, the whole thing was for me to just kind of lay the ghosts to rest and put that material out there, and it was so good for me to do that. And it was I've actually managed to get this out of my head for the last 30 years as to what it would be like, and there it is, an entity of its own. So from that, I now need to take it out live to promote it. It all depends on who wants to see the band. I think that possibly the best way to go immediately would be to do a support tour for a reasonably well-known band.
Yep.
But we all know that bions exist, and you don't get chosen because so and so in the band likes you. It's all about how much and how many gigs and how many bums on seats, etc. So it is something that, of course, I want to go out and promote it. It would be silly not to do that, but I have to look at it, logistically, as well as how well it would be to do that. But it's all about money, isn't it? The whole thing's always about money. It's very hard to be artistic and divorce and separate the figures and the paperwork that is required to keep a band together. It's great to say, yes, well, I'm just an artist and that's all I do, but there is another side to it that as a working musician you have to be totally aware of and on top of.
Do you know Richie Blackmore at all? And there's a reason I asked that question.
No, I don't know Richie Blackmore. Yes, I toured with him with Samson. We did, I think it was Back to Earth was the album with Cozy Powell and Graham Bonnet.
I think so. Yep, you're right. Yep.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So, does anybody really know Richie? Does Richie Blackmore know Richie Blackmore?
Well, I couldn't think of a better opening band than yourselves for what he's doing with Rainbow in 2017, and I know that he's planning a slew of shows. So, I mean, the universe works in mysterious ways, mate. I don't know whether he actually listens to what I do. He probably doesn't. He wouldn't know who I am, of course. But, mate, I don't know if somebody out there who's listening could somehow, say to Richie, hey, have a listen to what Thunderstick is doing in 2017. I reckon that'd be a phenomenal double bill.
Thank you so much. Wow, that is just the praise just keeps on coming.
Oh, it's all genuine, mate. It's just I love what you're doing, and I think it works. Yeah,
I can tell. Thank you so much. I mean, yeah, it would be wonderful to do that. I've got to try and take on an agency. It's been a long time, it has been a long time. 30-something years since there has been new Thunderstick material put together. I put an album out, as I said, 2011, but that was just all remastered stuff, that we'd put together. This is the first album with new material, and so I just want to get out there and play it. But yeah, that would be great.
I also remember, I meant to ask you earlier, what happened to the album cover? Did I correctly read that there was a problem with the original album artwork and it had to be changed?
Yeah, you did. It was really quite strange. It came about out of the blue. We were actually in production. I took on an artist that I've known for quite a while, a guy called Baz, and Baz Wold, as his name is, on Facebook.
Right.
And I asked him what I wanted, and he said, okay, I'll have a look and put some stuff together. He did, but it really wasn't what I was after. I had the title already, Something Wicked This Way Comes. And he said, well, I've got this eye that I've had knocking about for a while. And he sent me a copy of it. And I went, oh, my God, that's perfect. And it's just this one eye. And I thought, right, what we can do is we can put the image of Thunderstick, of me pointing, in the iris of the eye. So he went ahead and did it. And we were backwards and forwards, constantly updating it, changing it, etc. And then we eventually decided that we'd got there in the end. And I had submitted all the graphic work for the booklet. We're putting a 20-page booklet out with this album. And
nice. Okay.
That was great. It was, thinking, okay, it's in production now. Suddenly a guy from Canada pops up and says that he had already done that particular piece of artwork, and that my artist was copying his work. So we put the two side by side, and what it was that it was a still from the original 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, and it was taken of the. I don't know whether you've seen the film, but the one survivor that gets out. What it is that there's this pan. They pan in from quite a distance, and they go right in close to her eye. And because she's been crying and screaming and this, that, and the others happen, her eyes are all puffy and the bloodshot, and all this kind of thing. And that is where the two pieces of artwork had come from. This guy had done his look on it and his take on it. And my artist had done his take on it. And the two were very, very similar. So we had to pull it. We just pulled it. And we've now updated that artwork accordingly.
Okay. God, that explains that, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. Rightio. I love your drumming. I mentioned earlier that I'm a bass player and sometime guitarist, so I do focus on the rhythmic aspect of an album. Your drumming almost harks back to the great days of the shuffle and groove found in blues, rock, R&B and jazz. Tell me all about your drumming.
Okay, started drumming when I was 9. Never had a lesson before. It was all sort of from the heart. I had a lot of strange influences, those influences being, of course, Keith Moon, the great Keith Moon, totally mad and so explosive in his playing. Then there would be the other rock drummers that I really loved, they being obviously Ian Pace because of that kind of groove that he gets going. And then we have John Bonham. And then I go to a complete diversify from that to there was a band called Gong with Steve Hillage, and the one-time drummer was a guy called Pierre Merlin, and he had a lot of that. It's very strange, a lot of hi-hat stuff going on, and I really loved that. There's another band called Vandergraaf Generator that I really loved, the drummer within that. So I was a little bit like a sponge, really. I would absorb from all different areas and all different kind of, different parts of the band, and I would just it just suddenly formulated a style. I loved to be adventurous, and I was lucky in Samson in as much as that the bass player Chris Aylmer would hammer everything to the floor. He would, doing a perfect bass job, keeping it all there. And what I was lucky to do, instead of being drummer bass combination, I was able to play off of Paul Samson, the guitarist. So Chris would keep everything nicely tight and bottom ending and grooving. Whereas I could do all the fills with Paul, and we used to really sort of just play off of each other all the time. So I have a big kit. I've got quite a sizable kit. It's very strange that I look at all these small kits that people have now. They have, they have the bass drum, and they have only one rack tom and one floor tom, and that's about it, really, isn't it? As well as the snare. I still, I'm still playing my original kit back from the day. So, it's quite a sizable kit.
No, good on you, mate. I do listen to most albums with my musician lens, as I call it, because I do a lot of album reviews, and man, I found myself coming back to what would I do as a bass player if I was playing to your drumming, and exactly right, I would be locking it down most of the time. So the bloke that you've got in there at the moment, sorry, I know you mentioned his name earlier, he's done a stellar job on the album, so he needs to be congratulated as well.
Yeah, Rex Thunderbolt. Now, you would not believe that he actually had that surname for himself before I came on the scene.
Destiny.
And you've got to be kidding me. Your name is Rex Thunderbolt? Well, you're in then. Definitely. But yeah, he's interpreted what I do in a really nice way so that it does fit together quite well.
Yeah, all of the musicians on the album have given Lucy enough space to do her thing really well, I think. And, I'll just talk about the vocal quickly again. Gosh, this is going to sound pretty odd, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, of course, but when I first listened to Don't Sleep With the Enemy, I couldn't tell if it was a male or female singing. So I thought, gosh, okay, this is a not brand new, but it's a very original type of singing. And then, of course, I can see that she's a very attractive young lady and the pictures and all the rest of it. And then I thought, now I can put it there. But, mate, I think what you've been able to do is the musicians have been able to give Lucy a stage within the performance itself. So a virtual stage, if you like, a virtual or a sonic stage within the performance itself. And it's the first time I've actually heard a vocal like hers before.
Yeah, very much so. When we were talking before we had recorded, she said that she was able to do. We changed some stuff. Some of the vocal lines I had to change because obviously Jodie had sung them in the past, and Lucy couldn't either get that high or it didn't suit her voice. So we changed a lot around. Not a lot, but enough. But she said that she can sing male vocal melody lines. So for her to do that was perfect for me because I could. I was actually, when I first thought about putting it all together, I never even contemplated putting a male vocal there. But then when she told me that, I thought, oh, that's great because I get the best of both worlds, really.
Okay. All right. Okay. Glad. Yeah. I'm glad my intuition wasn't off there. Then, if that's the case, it might just be the case that she is doing, to your exact point there, male vocal melodies, and that's what I was hearing because I have played in a lot of bands, and I was just thinking, shit, this is some stuff that I'd love to put some backing vocals to.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, the sparsity of allowing her own vocal performance within the arrangement purely became out of a necessity, really, because we were up against time in the studio because, I was paying for it and you have to try and get things down quickly. So there wasn't time in the studio to do all these lush backing vocals and what have you. I would have liked to have done them, but having said that, the sparsity has worked within the band. So I'm actually quite pleased that we didn't go down that route and we kept it nice and empty.
Likewise, I think it sounds great. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go back a bit further. If Wikipedia is to be believed, your last release, I'm talking about official release of new material, was in 1984. That's the Thunderstick album Beauty and the Beast. So this is a very broad question here, mate, but that's well over 30 years ago. What have you been up to in the decades since?
Okay, well, since that time, I've been playing. I got back together with Paul Samson and Chris Aylmer, and we did some reunion gigs, Japan, and we did the States and places like that. Unfortunately, neither of them are with us anymore. Both of them died of cancer. Okay. Chris with throat cancer, and Paul shortly after. Round the other way. Paul died,
not good,
and then Chris died about a couple of years afterwards. So Samson stuff, we were lucky enough to put that together and do some shows, and we did some recording. When Bruce Dickinson left, the guy that took over was a guy called Nicky Moore, and which was really good fun for me to go back to the mothership and start doing Samson material again. We did that, and I've been busy doing my own bits and pieces and playing for other people and just real kind of low profile stuff. I've continued playing, and I had a daughter. I got married and had a daughter, and I've spent a lot of time kind of with her and,
doing dad things. Yeah, gotcha.
Living life. I was fortunate enough to do that I didn't have to go out and, do a 9 to 5 and slog. And it's just lucky, really. And, I have been playing all the time, though.
So have you been playing in cover bands or you've been doing session work? What have you been up to musically?
Not so much cover, just session work and recording with other people. Not even putting my name to it, just playing with other people and writing and what have you, all that sort of thing.
Good on you. Yeah, God, I've done a lot of that, not putting my name to things. You just sort of help out and just do something here or there because you like the idea of being creative and contributing to somebody's creativity.
That's exactly right. Wow, you couldn't put it better myself. That's exactly why I do it.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful, mate. So, all right. I'm now going to ask a few questions about your time in Iron Maiden and Samson, if that's okay, because I think I'll start getting hate mail if I don't ask these two questions since I've got the opportunity to chat to you.
Okay.
Let's start with Samson, and that's a band that counted the iconic Bruce Dickinson as its frontman. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about your time in the band?
Oh, blimey. It was a work in progress, in as much as that when we got together with Bruce, we had a plethora of material, both the three of us, Paul, Chris and I, and Bruce. And so we were able to put together what was Head On quite quickly. And it was a time when Thunderstick as a character was in its formulative years, and I was slowly becoming this mad thing behind a mask. It was very strange. It was very much full on all the time, because what had happened was because of punk had made this appearance, and suddenly everybody was on the punk bandwagon. Record labels only wanted to record and sign up punk bands. You would have bookers and agents only wanting to book punk bands. I mean, it was a bad time for any kind of solid rock musicians.
Yes, yep.
And it needed it, though. I mean, music business did need that big shake-up and that energy and that, just chuck everything to the wall and see what sticks. So there was, after punk had actually was starting to die its own death, and the punk musicians had kind of theoretically thrown their babies out of the pram.
Become caricatures of themselves.
Yeah, for themselves. Yeah, exactly. I think there were a few bands that really, to this day you hold in awe, and I think that are great bands like the Damned. I love the Damned.
Awesome.
And obviously the Sex Pistols. But anyway, that there was all this underlying current of lots of bands ready to come back on the scene, and those bands had listened to prog rock back in the day, and so they had learned how to play their instruments. And so when this movement came about, this new wave of British heavy metal came about, that was the reason that it came about, because there were all these underground bands ready to go. And as soon as the tide changed a little bit, there they were. So it was an exciting time, and exciting for me in Samson, because I had formulated this lunatic character, and I was just kind of seeing how far I could push that.
Yeah, I like the, you term it the lunatic character. I really like the idea of that, and I don't think there's that much of that around these days. Or you get bands that are, with all due respect, I say this, so nothing against the bands, but they're very earnest, bands like Slipknot and Mushroom Head, and they're very heavy, They're very heavy and they're very angry. Or then you get the black metal stuff, which is all about this theatrical aspect of Satan, or God knows whatever else they carry on about. But your stuff seemed to have a very healthy sense, or a dose of humour about it. It was fun. It was exciting.
Well, I can give you a little bit of an anecdote regarding that. Around the time that I joined Samson, it was a time that there was no social media, of course. There was no DVDs. There was the way that bands got to their fans were purely by putting an album out and going out and playing it live. And the only thing that promoted that band were music business publications, e.g. Music Press every week, and the magazines. And within that, you would have a poster maybe of the band that you could stick on your bedroom wall and what have you. And I thought that most of the bands that had that, you would never know who the drummer was. You would know the guitarist because he was down the front and posing, and the singer, of course. And then you look at this guy's head at the back there, covered by a row of cymbals and hardware. I thought, all right, there were exceptions to the rule, like Keith Moon and, that sort of thing. But for the mainstay, that's the way it was. And so I thought, you know what, I will create a faceless drummer. And by putting that mask on and becoming the faceless drummer, I managed to get far more press than I ever would have done had I not done that, and just sat there as the drummer in the interviews. People wanted to talk to me and see for themselves. There was all kinds of weird and wonderful things that we had happen as well because I started actually living that character. And anyway, what was happening at the time in UK was that women's emancipation was really quite an ongoing angry type of setup of women, and they looked at my image, and seeing the image on the posters outside the gigs we were playing, they took real offence at it, because they thought that it belittled women, and the whole thing about it was really quite threatening. As you just rightly said, that was no further than the truth you could not get, because I always imagined Thunderstick as a bit of a kind of knockabout character as well. Yeah. But anyway, they started ripping all our posters down and what have you. So when I actually did put my own band together, that was the very reason that I put a female vocalist at the front, was because I thought, I'm not going to go down that route again and have people saying, oh, he glorifies this and it's terrible and that. By putting a female at the front, I could turn around and say, well, you go and talk to her, and then because she'll tell you how she's treated within the band, how she's treated within the business, etc. So that's why I did it. But I started living Thunderstick, and that was a bit strange, because before we would, when we were on tour, there were support bands that never actually saw me at all, very much like the Kiss persona. They wouldn't be able to tell you who Thunderstick was.
Mm-hmm.
And I do whole tours as Thunderstick, and it really got a bit strange. I didn't know where to draw the line between Graham Purkis and Thunderstick, and they started getting merged at one point, and it was a bit odd. Yeah,
bit of life imitating art starting to take over.
Yeah, yes, it was that indeed.
Okay, and mate, how do you remember Bruce back in the day? Because, I mean, of course, I was only a very small child back then, but he doesn't seem to have changed much based on his singing style, stage presence and demeanour in interviews. But what's your take on what he was like as a person back then? Was he a good bloke to be around?
He was young, and he was energetic. He'd come from university. He didn't think that we could go to an agent. Why pay an agent when you can book a tour yourself? So he was that sort of person. He would go into the management's offices, lock himself in a room, and come out with a tour at the end of it, by phoning up everybody and putting together a Samson tour of his own making. He was very energetic and had lots of ideas. And you could tell that he was, people ask me this all the time. Did you know that he was going to turn into this, this modern man of today? No, obviously you couldn't. Right, but he did have some kind of energy that was constantly driving him all the time. And he was a reasonable guy to be around. I mean, I spent most of my time with Paul when I was with Samson because we lived quite near to each other.
Okay. Yep.
So I didn't really used to go out a great deal with Bruce, but I mean, what can you say about the guy? He's a man of today, isn't he? Really is.
Well, he's done it. He's achieved a hell of a lot. I mean, besides Iron Maiden, I think this aircraft thing that he's got going on is, I mean, how the hell does he find the time and energy to do both?
Indeed. When they're not doing that, he's putting together some kind of project in brewing real ale. I mean, do you get Trooper in Australia?
The Iron Maiden beer, the Trooper, Iron Maiden beer. Oh, look, you can get it in some select places, but it's probably double the price of what you pay over in the UK. And is it really? Don't get me wrong, is it really that good a beer that you'd pay double for it? If you know what I'm saying.
I've never tried it. No, seriously, I've never tried it. But I know that it's available in my local supermarket. You walk straight in there and there's Trooper on the shelves, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's the new thing, isn't it, for musicians to start diversifying and trying to get... It's almost like they look at the whole... I don't know whether I can term it any other way, but the ecosystem that the fans exist in and go a bit like what Gene Simmons and Paul Simmons did remarkably well back in the day to this day.
But do you not think that Iron Maiden maybe learnt from that? Because one of the first major tours that they did were as support to Kiss, and so I would imagine Rod Smallwood was watching and thinking, you know what, this is going to come in really useful.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head right there. With all due respect to Ari and Bruce and Dave and Adrian and the like, and the guys in the band. Sorry, Nico, mate. I think Rod Smallwood is the key factor. He's the X factor of their success. And now I've been a massive Maiden fan all my entire life. So no disrespect to the band or the band's members whatsoever. But at the end of the day, they are a massive, massive marketing machine in 2017. And I think you're spot on. I think that they've looked at what Gene and Paul have done, and I'm a big fan of Gene and Paul's as well. So there's no disrespect here. They're just offering fans what their fans want, which is a heap of merchandise with their logo plastered on it.
Yeah, as well as that, you've got to tap into the lifestyle as well. The big Iron Maiden family, the worldwide family. I mean, look at merchandising. When you go to a different area that you're playing, you put together a T-shirt specifically for that area, not so much just the country, but for that area as well.
Yeah, I've only just noticed that. I went to the Guns N' Roses gig that Axl and Co toured here in Australia earlier on in the year, and they had a T-shirt for bloody Brisbane, mate. Now, you've been to Australia, I assume, mate. We're like the third biggest city in Australia in a relatively small country, and yet they produced a T-shirt just for little old us.
Yeah, that's it. And that is just marketing to the nth degree, isn't it? I mean, it really is.
Well, I bought one. Yeah.
I had a guy once turn around and say to me, you know what, I was always frightened of Thunderstick. And I said, why is that? He said, because I knew this is when they just come out of school and were coming to our gigs. And he said, because I knew that Eddie wasn't real, whereas Thunderstick was real. And so therefore that freaked me out a little bit more, to have a living, a living iconic person.
Yeah.
And whereas Eddie's just, the way you can market that, it's just phenomenal. Had it not been for Eddie, it's that great big, as you said, the marketing machine. It is huge. It's absolutely huge, and they are bigger and stronger than they've ever been before in 2017. To be able to release an album and have it go to number one in countries charts throughout the whole of the world is insane. It really is, isn't it?
I've been around long enough to see the transition, okay, so I was a fan of the band in the late 80s and right the way through, and Blaze Bailey was in the band as well. I got right into the X Factor and didn't really like Virtual 11, the album after that much, but I was really pleased in year 2000 or 99 when it was announced that Bruce would return. But mate, I started to see people who never listened to heavy metal all of a sudden go, yes, I know Iron Maiden and I like Iron Maiden, and I thought something really weird's happening here. It's not like with Kiss where everybody sort of knows I was made for loving you. People, you were seeing really attractive young ladies in nightclubs asking for The Number of the Beast and even Hallowed Be Thy Name. Like, these are the sort of songs that they were starting to play, and it took a few years. There's a bit of a lag time between 2000 and I think I noticed a tipping point around about 2005 to 2008. But all of a sudden, Iron Maiden became the people's band. They were no longer just a heavy metal band.
Yeah, indeed, and they really worked that as well. That big, yes. We're all in this together. There is no colour or creed or religion or anything like that. You are all part of the Iron Maiden family, and it's a very, very clever, really clever industry to be in.
Well, it's really interesting having a talk to you about this, mate, because people do know you were actually in Iron Maiden. So
yeah. The
whole evolution of Eddie the Ed and Ari becoming this larger-than-life bass monolith that he is, and he's an influence on me, I must say. As a kid, I looked at him and bought all of the bass magazines with him in it. And, mate, what was the band like back in those days? And I will ask you this question. I know it's a really bloody obvious question, but I do need to ask it. Did you have any idea things would blow up and become as big as what they were, or even an inkling? You know how you mentioned how Bruce was always very studious and always had this energy about him? Was there that same energy in Iron Maiden when you were in them?
Yeah, but it was strange because it was shared between Steve and the singer. When I first joined Maiden, I thought it was the singer's band, and the singer of that time was a guy called Dennis Wilcock, and I thought it was his band. But then, it soon became apparent that it wasn't his band. Steve would come over because all the guys were from the East End, and I was a bit of a kind of I was alienated from that because I came from the south of London, right. And what happened was Steve used to come up to my house, and we'd go through bass and drum parts, and because I had a room that I'd soundproofed, and so he was able to come up, and we'd go through all these bits of music, just purely bass and drums, and I'd never done that before. I'd worked hard within a band and rehearsed within a band, but I'd never gone and done that, dissecting by putting bass and drum parts together. And this is 1977. I thought, wow, this is different. And so, yes, it was work in progress, much the same as I said about Samson. It was a band that wanted to get better, wanted to get slicker. We all liked material that, we found that was very intrinsic type of material, clever stuff such as Rush, 2112, and all that kind of thing. He liked Kansas, he liked UFO, and those sort of bands. Yep. And so we were kind of trying to evolve and there's no way that you could think that. The only thing that gave it away was when I was re-asked to join after we toured together.
Yep.
And Dougie Samson had left before Clive Burr joined. I went along. It was Christmas. It was 2 days after Christmas because Steve phoned me up. As I say, we'd been doing this tour, Samson, Iron Maiden, Angel Witch, and they'd seen me play every night with Samson, so they knew exactly what I was capable of doing and how I played and my style, etc. And anyway, we finished this tour and the phone went, and it was Steve Harris, and he said, "You're not going to believe this, but would you be up for coming back and joining the band again?" And I was like, "Whoa." My Thunderstick image was just beginning to take off, and it was becoming, quite big and all the rest. They obviously didn't want that; they wanted me. So I said, "Can I have a Christmas period to think about it?" So we had Christmas. 2 days later, I went and played with them. They hired a kit in, and we went and played. And this is the only time that I thought, maybe this is going to happen big. Is that Rod Smallwood was there. And he said to me, "You know what? This band is going to be bigger than Led Zeppelin ever were." And at the time, I thought, well, that's really nice as a manager to believe in his bands to that degree. But I guess he was right. He really was right, wasn't he? And only because of time. I mean, everybody loves Zeppelin. And it was only because they were a product of their time, and Iron Maiden are a product of their time now. And as you rightly said, social media has blown the doors out. They've blown the doors in completely. And you have that kind of, the kind of thing that you can promote endlessly throughout the whole of the world in no time at all. You can do a gig in a church hall or a stadium, and people can either watch it live there and then, or within seconds, somebody else on the other side of the world can watch it. Whereas Led Zeppelin didn't have that, obviously, because they were a product of their time. But that's it. Yeah, Small was saying that, and I thought, you know what, maybe he's right. And there was a period when Samson was still level pegging with Maiden, and then bit by bit we had a lot of trouble with management problems and one thing and another, and we lost ground quite considerably, and that was that.
So I had a chat to Les McEwen, just talking about management issues, completely different genre, but a very nice bloke and an awesome interview subject with Les McEwen from the band the Bay City Rollers. And you're probably aware, mate, that they had all sorts of issues with management back in the day. But how did you fare, mate? Did you have, I mean, you sort of alluded to it there with Samson, but with Thunderstick and the like, have you had a fairly, standard road insofar as you've had to be really careful of which management you've dealt with, or have you had a decent ride, or have you been ripped off?
Well, all the above. We took on management that we thought were great, but it didn't work, and I went from one management to another, because when I put Thunderstick together, I wanted to try and actually the kind of progress that we'd made, or the progress individually that I'd made as a member of Samson, I had to try and keep that kind of profile up there as much as I possibly can, because anybody in the music industry can tell you that you're riding high at the moment, but in a couple of days nobody knows you, and so you have to kind of keep that profile going. So of course you've got musicians that you take on who want pain. Perish the thought, but they want pain. And so I would lurch from one management to another. And within Thunderstick, I've had quite a few managers, yeah. None have been the right one, because I would be as big as AC/DC now if they had been the right one. Especially after all the compliments that you've been giving me about this album.
Well, you certainly deserve to have been. There's no doubt about that, because the talent's there. It's such a weird thing in the music industry, isn't it? I mean, look, I've just left my job as a telecommunications account executive. Okay, I've got a condition called ulcerative colitis, which means that I really can't be in a corporate environment in the bloody 12 and 14-hour days that are required there, and the stress of those sorts of jobs, because frankly, mate, it'll kill me eventually. And I've always been...
Andrew, tell me what that is, because you're the second person that has actually mentioned that disease in the last week. I was talking to somebody else the other day, and they were talking about their wife. I was walking with him, taking the dogs for a walk. So what happens with that? Tell me.
So the technical description would be that the lower part of my colon, or my intestine, I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it, near my rectum, it's all ulcerated, so it bleeds. So consequently, excuse my language, listeners, I shit blood whenever I go to the bathroom.
Jesus.
Yeah, and various things can aggravate it. So if I drink too much, unfortunately, so I'm pretty much having to give up the drinking. Not that I'm a big drinker or anything like that, but you do like having a bevy with your buddies. Who doesn't? But I think I'm going to have to give that away fairly soon. Stress is a big one, mate. Jesus, I didn't realise how much stress I was carrying because of my job until I left it, and I lost 3 kilos in the first week. And of course, miraculously, the symptoms that I suffer because of ulcerative colitis started to, well, they're not disappearing completely, but they're starting to ebb, if you like. Yeah, dissipate, if you like. Yeah, I personally have to be very careful because in my job I was travelling a lot and I'd frequently end up in hospitals. So I was typical bloody male, mate. I wasn't taking the medication that I was supposed to be taking, and then I'd wonder why I'd be up in Cairns, which is in far north Queensland, and I'd wake up because I do a lot of travelling with the job, as I say, and go into the office, wherever office I might be, and think, geez, I don't feel that well. And I used to try to go to a pub and have a meal and a beer, and I couldn't even finish anything, and then go back and then feel like shit, and then go on the plane and my wife would pick me up from the airport, and then a day later I'd end up in the hospital. So that's what it is. I mean, and I feel sorry for you. I mean, I know I suffer from it, but I feel sorry for anybody that suffers from it. Mate, if you can believe it, I have a mild version of it. I just had a colonoscopy 2 weeks ago, and I've come out with a 2 thumbs up. I've just got to keep on taking medication and the like. But what it meant for me, mate, was that I had to reevaluate my entire lifestyle. Right. I had to change everything because, mate, there's something, and I don't mind acknowledging this publicly, mate, you suffer anxiety because of it, because you never know when it's going to strike. And you could be in the middle of a meeting with somebody. Now, being a telecommunications account executive, I used to have quite robust meetings with people, and they're not arguments, but they're robust discussions about financial matters and technical matters and the like, and then, bang, it would hit me, and I'd be in so much pain. And I'd think, how the hell do I manage this? And eventually I said, I've got 2 small kids, one daughter age 4, one daughter age 2.5. I love my wife. I do. I don't want to die anytime soon. My father died very young. He died of cancer, and I thought, I've got his constitution. I'm susceptible to whatever it is that's going to get me. I need to focus on lifestyle. So I try as much as I can to cook my own food and cook for the family and do a lot of this sort of stuff. And I think what it's done is, mate, I've done well financially, so I've been able to do things like, I've paid off the house, that sort of thing. So and I own the cars. We don't own great cars, but you know what I mean. I haven't gone and bought bloody BMWs and Mercedes and Audis, if you know what I'm saying. We drive Toyotas, Sorry, I know that's a long response for you, but yeah, that's what it is.
I asked the question, mate. I'm really, don't know what to say. But you've obviously made the right decision because, as you say, you want to see your kids grow up.
Yeah, I do, and I think that it's, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether the diagnosis is growing or I don't know whether more people are actually getting the illness or the condition or the diseases is actually a disease, or it's being diagnosed more. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we live in a world where anxiety is just incredible and stress is absolutely incredible. I mean, every single day, you would not believe the problems that I've had trying to do this album. I won't bore you with it because it's just all semantics, but I mean, from the day one up until right now, the amount of problems and the stress with it has been quite incredible.
I can imagine that. Yeah.
So it's so gratifying when I hear somebody like you saying, you really enjoy it and you like listening to it. That's great because it does make all the stress worthwhile. But it has been quite a heavy load to bear for quite a while now. So.
Well, I hope it's worth it too, mate. Because when I say I hope it's worth it, it should be worth it because you've got a wonderful album, you've got a wonderful product out there, you've got a great band around you. I just hope enough people get to listen to it because people have such short bloody attention spans at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And they tend to not give things a chance either, is the other thing. But I think that there's enough immediate energy with your material that, mate, I only listened to it for 30 seconds and went, holy shit, this is great. Yeah. I really enjoyed this.
I'm kind of in a dichotomy with that, really, because my background says Iron Maiden, Samson, heavy metal, but my music has never been heavy metal. It's always been that classic rock, that kind of feel to it. I loved bands like Mountain, and
Leslie West, yeah.
Oh, well, just the band. He and the three of them, Felix Pappalardi, Leslie West, and Corky Lang, the three of them together. incredible. I mean, the guy could just put a jack plug into an amp, turn his guitar up, and he would sound like Leslie West. Whereas all these days, you've got these guitarists that put about 100 processors, everything's going through shitloads of stuff into the amp, and they still don't sound as good as he sounded.
No, that's a lost art, mate. There's a guitarist that I've recently... He's another guy that I don't know whether you guys could ever do anything together, but a Swedish guitarist. He's a maestro. His name's Marcus Jadell, and he's in, the band Candlemass?
Oh, yeah.
Leif Edling, the bass player, he's got a couple of other bands, or he's associated with a couple of other bands. Two of them are the Doomsday Kingdom and Avatarium, and Marcus Jadell is the guitarist for both of those bands, and boy oh boy is he an excellent guitarist. I interviewed him a few months ago, but he is exactly what you just mentioned there. He's the sort of guitarist that I feel if he plugs into any amp, through any guitar, he would do enough for me to go, that's Marcus's playing, and that's a dying art, isn't it? It's a lost art.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is indeed.
But,
well.
All right, mate. I'm just going to do a time check because we have been talking for an hour now, and I've got a few more questions that I can ask, believe me, but how are we going for time on your side?
I'm fine with you, mate. I'm in my office, so no problem at all.
All right. Now, this is only the third time that I've done this, okay? So typically what I do is I have 3 questions that I ask all of my interview subjects, but I want to extend it to 10 if that's okay. And this has got nothing to do with music. This is a bit of a segue to some of that personal exchange we just had before, actually. I'd like for the listeners to get to know you, mate, okay? So that's what these 10 questions are all about. So the first question is this. Choose 3 words to describe yourself.
Oh, bloody hell. That's not 2 of them, by the way.
It's almost 3.
Adventurous, hopeful, and indecisive.
Okay. Here's the second question, and this will be interesting to hear the answer to this one. If you could go back to when you were 18 and give yourself some advice, what do you think you'd say?
Oh, wow. What would I say? I mean, I'm so proud of the fact that I've managed to, for such a long time, stick at something that I really enjoy doing. But I would say go and get yourself a degree in accountancy and law before you start playing with music.
Yep. Agreed, and it's not the first time I've heard that one, unfortunately, but it sort of harks back to the discussion that I had there with Les from Bay City Rollers, mate. I don't know what it is about managers and wanting to take bloody artists for a ride, mate, but it's just chronic.
It's because I'll tell you why, because I think that musicians wear their hearts on their sleeves. Soon as you write something, it is you. It takes on a life of its own. And unfortunately, a lot of managers don't have that. They have their knowledge in advertising and anything else that they bring to the table, but they don't have that inner emotion that says, this is me, what you're listening to is me, it's part of me. And they don't see that at all, and so they just steamroll it right the way across all that artistic crap, artistic license. What's all that about? And unfortunately, as a musician, you really get hurt. I mean, you can read 100 great reviews that say your album's wonderful, but you'll actually, the one that is a bad review and says, no, he's got nothing new to offer, etc., etc. That's the one that will stick in your mind all the time.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's the way it is with being a musician or an artist of any kind, an author, somebody who, anything that is artistic. You lay your heart on your sleeve, and that's it, and people trample on it.
Yeah, it's sad though, isn't it? Sad that it says a lot about human nature in one way. I don't want to be too negative about it, but I think it does.
Yeah, right.
All right, question 3, here we go. What 5 guests, living or dead, from any time in history would you invite to dinner?
Oh, God. Okay, Jimi Hendrix, Jack the Ripper.
Okay.
I'd love to know who he was. Oh my God. I don't know. That's quite a hard one. There's so many people I look up to. Alice Cooper, I suppose.
Yep.
Because just for the anecdotes, that would be a wonderful guest at dinner as well, wouldn't he?
Yep.
I'd like to maybe my daughter, when I'm not around anymore, the ability to come back and be able to sit and have a dinner with your grown-up daughter, which would be good. That would be nice to see. Yeah. To see who she became after you'd gone.
Yep.
How many is that? 4?
That's 4. Yep.
I have to think about the 5th. Ask me the next one. I'll come back to that one.
All right, here we go. If you had a time machine and could visit any time in history, what time would you visit and why?
I'd go back to Victorian England, just because it was such a kind of a period that it seems to be very. I'd like to go back and experience all of that. You know, the way that England managed to sort of become what it has become nowadays, and a lot of it is because of the Victorian days. You know, the Brunel and people like that. So I would love to go back and experience that. Yeah, that would be really good. Victorian England.
Cool. Good answer to that question, actually. Okay, so question number 5 is, what is your most treasured possession and why?
Frank Zappa would be the other one.
Great. Oh, God, he'd be a wonderful dinner guest, wouldn't he?
Frank
Yes.
Zappa, indeed, that would be, you just sit there with your mouth open listening to this guy.
Oh, you would. So, no doubt about that. Yeah, very interesting character.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, what was the next one?
So question 5 is, what is your most treasured possession and why?
My family.
Yep.
I don't need to go into why, because I love them.
Your family. Simple as that. That'd be my answer too to that one there. Yep. I mean, it can be an emotional possession, and that's what that is. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to be a physical possession, though. Yep.
No.
Okay, next question. Question number...
I mean, if it was physical, it would be my bloody Land Rover that has just that I've hemorrhaged money at over the last God knows how many years, but I still love the bloody thing. I get inside it and I think I really love this. But God.
What have you got? Have you got a Discovery? Have you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, how did you guess?
Oh, you're a Discovery kind of a guy.
Yeah.
No, cool, mate. All right, okay. Question number 6 is, you can take 3 items to a deserted island for a week. What would you take and why?
Boat. I would have to have something to play music on, whatever it be.
Music player, yep.
Yeah, music player, definitely. I don't do kind of independence that well, really. I like my own company, and it's nice to be on your own a few times, and you're able to sort of think and get things in perspective and all that. But I don't really do individuality that well. So I guess it would have to be it'd have to be another person.
Okay.
I would have to, if I was on an island, something to play music, another person, and a boat.
Okay, sweet. Good answer to that one. That works for me. Okay, so question number 7. Name a book that you've read that you would recommend, and why would you recommend that book?
Oh, the very last one that I've just been reading has been really, really good, and that was by Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974. And because it's such an iconic film, and it was done on such a shoestring budget, etc. Why the guy goes on, he takes the whole story in real time. So obviously when you're filming something, you don't film in real time, you do different scenes at different times, etc. But he writes that in real time. So he explains what they did, how they did it, etc., etc. And then after he's finished about the film, he then goes into about 3 or 4 chapters as to what horror films, what sort of idiom, why they are considered to be horror films, how they are considered to be horror films or terror. And he is very learned. The guy is very, very learned and really quite fascinating to read. So yeah, it was a great book, and it only came about because of the contesting about the original cover.
Okay, all right. Well, no, thanks for that. Okay, so anybody out there, get into that book there.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 8. This is another interesting question. I'm really keen to hear your response to this one here. If you could obtain an audience with the Dalai Lama, what question would you ask?
That's very strange as well, because recently there's been a thing on television with a woman called Joanna Lumley.
Oh, yeah, from Absolutely Fabulous, yeah.
Yeah, that's it, yeah, okay. And she's done a travel thing, and she's travelled all throughout India, and she got an audience with the Dalai Lama.
Gosh, what would she ask?
I can't remember what it was that she asked, but I mean, the answer that he came back, you ended up with your mouth opening and just saying, "Wow, such a nice, unbelievable aura about the guy," and so you think about what he's gone through, the way that he's been ousted from his own country and all that kind of thing, with China, and yet this guy just absolutely is kind of love and calmness personified. It's really quite amazing. So I probably would ask him how I would go about achieving that kind of that oneness and that inner happiness, because I seem to be always at odds with myself. Not all the time, obviously. People aren't like that, but people are complex, and everybody thinks that they know other people. Oh, I know him because he's a laugh, and but you don't know him because you only see that one side of him. You might see him down in the bar, in the pub, or whatever, and he's got that face on. But what happens when he goes home and he puts his other face on? So it's how I would obtain that kind of inner tranquility, as it were.
Yeah, and it's ironic that the Chinese caused so much disruption for the Dalai Lama and his people, but I think it was the Chinese that invented the theory of the yin and the yang. So are you the white dot and the black part, or are you the black dot and the white part? You know what I mean? And they knew that back then, that we are very complex beings. We sometimes the sun, and sometimes we're the sun's light that reflects from the moon. And I think you just said something very profound there. Yeah, it's... we're all, what's the old ancient Indian saying, American Indian or North American Indian saying about, oh God, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's, there are 2 wolves and one of them is angry and one of them's happy. I don't know. It's a very simplified version of the fable, but, and the one that grows the most is the one you feed. In other words, which thoughts do you pay most attention to? That's the point.
Yeah. Wow.
Very profound, mate.
It would probably be the angry one, because he would be the one that would be snapping at you all the time and demanding attention.
Well, that's true, but I think sometimes you need... there's no question you need both in this earthly plane, in this dimension, don't you? You actually need to have both, but you just need to be wise enough to know when to call on which one of the 2.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right.
All right, second last question.
Very deep. Deep, we're getting there.
Mate, we have. Tends to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I will make this comment. I do notice that musicians like you and I, mate, we do have the capacity to go this deep. It is a feature of being a musician. I don't know what it is, but I've never met a musician that doesn't have that 4th dimension or the understanding.
That's it. Yeah, you have to have that. I'm sure you have to have that. That inner soul searching.
I think so. I think you need it to be creative, yeah.
And you're never happy with what you achieve. I mean, I hear people like yourself saying how great the album is and all that kind of thing. And I think, but I didn't get that mix right, and I didn't get that sound right, and this was a bit sloppy when it could have been a bit tighter and all that. And it's only me that sees that. But I would still beat myself up over it. And it's knowing when you stop and you go, no, that's it. Time to say goodbye and let that one go.
What's that old saying about art? It's never finished, it's just abandoned? I think that's it right there.
That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful.
All right, my second last question of the evening. Evening for me and early afternoon for your good self. Describe your happiest memory that you're willing to share with the audience.
Oh my God.
Musically.
Yeah, is it got to be musically or is it just got to be...
Oh, anything, really. Anything. This is all about you.
My daughter, birth of my daughter. See, my wife had to have a C-section. And she didn't see our daughter born, and I did, because they put this big sort of, this great big sheet.
Big sheet, I've been there twice, yeah.
Yeah. And I went round the other side of the sheet to have a look.
Oh, God. So they didn't allow me to do that, yeah.
So I saw my daughter in my wife's body. So, and the weirdest thing was that when she was born, the very first thing that came out my wife's mouth was she looked at her and said, "She's been here before."
Oh, very nice. An old soul.
Yeah, and that was, profound or what? She just said that out of the blue. It just seconds, after giving birth. They put her in her arms and she looked at her and said, "She's been here before." And I thought, whoa. So...
What does your daughter do as a vocation? What does she do for a living?
She has just she's 21, and she has just finished university doing psychology. And
there you go. Yeah, right there.
She's come to the conclusion that both her parents are crazy and totally mad. So nothing new there. And she does. What she does as a pastime is she loves weight training, a bit like I do. I haven't been in a gym for a long time now, but it's where we met. Both my wife and I met in a gym.
Cool.
So, that's all new for her. And, we're looking to see what she does, with her life. We obviously want her to go on and do well. She's almost looking at maybe doing another year as a master's degree. Yeah, she's not sure.
Yeah.
But, she's just come home. She's been home one day now. So
okay. Oh well, good on her. Well, mapping the mind and understanding the complex stream of human emotions, we need somebody to do that, and that's a psychiatrist or psychologist's job to do that, isn't it? So no, good on her, mate. Yeah. All right. Okay. Final question. Here we go. If you were called on to provide advice to world leaders, so if you could give a keynote address to the leaders of all of the nations of the world that participate in the UN, what would you say?
What did I say? Oh, good. I would say probably why. And the reason I would say why is because why is it so important to try and be one above another country or another leader? And why is it so important to try and make sure that, you believe in their doctrine and their lifestyle or their religion or whatever? Why is it so important for countries to do that? Surely it should be just harmonious. Otherwise we're not going to be around any longer. I mean, it's just terrible. The world of today is awful. It really is. And you've got two young children, and you must worry about what they're coming into. What are they doing?
I do get concerned about. I get concerned about the obvious things like terrorism and the like, but I get more concerned, I think, about not necessarily the life we're going to lead for them. I actually do get concerned about what might happen in about 200 years, though. I get really concerned about that because I start looking at. We don't seem to learn from history is going to be my point here.
No.
We just keep on bloody repeating it, and we're just advanced apes, really, or monkeys, aren't we? We're just advanced hominids that have recently, in a cosmic timescale, we've only really graduated from the trees and from the jungle, and we're proving it because we just can't stop fighting with each other and arguing about just petty shit, excuse my language.
Yeah, I mean... Australia's had its moments with terrorism, and the same with us at the moment in the UK. It's just unbelievable. You sit there and watch the news, and you just think, "Oh my God, where are we going?"
Well, that's the thing. Australia, we were the first country, or we were the first nationality that was attacked post 9/11, because remember when the Bali bombing happened and there were 88 Australians, I don't want to misquote here, but I think there were 88 Australians that lost their lives in Bali. And two of the people, I know that there were all different nationalities on the London Bridge attack there, but there were 2 Australians that were killed in that recently.
Yeah.
And then I think about these, what really gets me upset, that gets me upset too, but, my daughters, my daughter's only a year away from loving Ariana Grande, right? And I just think about all of those poor mums and their daughters from, the ones that were going to that gig and they got blown up and in Manchester. Yeah. And I think, holy shit, I mean, I've just taken my kids to the Wiggles, but it's not too far away from Ariana Grande or something like that. And I think, do I really want to put them in that position? Or do we give in, or do we just go about leading our life? I don't know. It's a tough thing, because I love my kids, mate, as you love your daughter. What do you do?
Well, yeah, what do? You can't wrap them up in cotton wool and say, I'm not going to let the bogeyman get you, but you can at least make them aware of the bogeyman so they can make their own decisions. And that's really, at the end of the day, it's all you want, isn't it, from your kids, so that they're able to differentiate between yes and no, good, bad, black, white, whatever it be. And that's all you can do. And then the older they get, all you can do is just to be there and not try and influence their life, but just be there. Should they occasionally fall off that tightrope, you've got to be underneath in the safety net.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, very much agree with that. Yeah, I tend to look.
You can't stop them from enjoying themselves. You can't. Oh, Mum, I want to go and do this, and I want to go do that. And as parents, you just go through hell when they want to go to some camp, or they want to go to some mad play park or something like that.
Yep.
You can't. You just got to try and separate from that and go, okay, you do it, but we'll be there.
Yeah. No, you're right.
My wife, the very first time that our daughter went to London with her kind of preschool type of group, my wife was neurotic enough to follow them up in London in the train carriage that was behind the school group.
Gosh, yeah.
So we call it daughter stalking.
I can understand that.
Never let her forget it as well.
Yeah, I can understand that, mate. I think, you do love your daughters, and you love your daughter. I love my daughters, and you want what's best for them. And look, because I've been away from home, travelling so much with the job that I've just quit doing, I realise with my youngest in particular, who's 2.5, literally 2.5 of those years, I've only stopped doing it the last 2 months, I haven't bloody been around. And that's not a sob story, by the way. I had to go away and earn money and do what I had to do until I couldn't do it anymore. But, I sort of started to think the most important thing that I think that I can do, in all sincerity, is spend time with them for now. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that's the most important thing that I can do, and just observe them and get to understand their personalities, because they are completely different from each other, and they're very different from my wife and I.
That's it. That's exactly right. I mean, more than that you cannot say, really.
No, that's right, mate. That's it. And, mate, on that note, I better wrap things up, and I better let you get back to your day, because, mate, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this chat.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, Andrew. It's been great. Really nice talking to you. And I'm really so proud that you like the album. And, all the nice stuff you said about it. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Meant every word, mate. And my final point would be, please, if you can, in some way, shape or form, make your way down to Australia.
Okay. All right. You got it. All right, Andrew.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for the chat, and hopefully I'll chat to you soon.
Have a good evening. Well, it's night now, isn't it? It's not even.
Yeah.
Take care.
No worries,
bye,
mate.
You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was Graham Purkis from the outfit Thunderstick. Thank you so much for listening.